keyword research is the compass that points you in the right direction. Because if you're putting content out there, if you're putting blogs and pages out there, but no one's finding it, you're just spinning your wheels. Google gives you all of your keywords, but they also give you additional keywords, and it shows you the monthly amount of searches and also the competition. So what people are typing in, and it'll show you high, medium, or low. The golden goose right here that you want to get is low competition, but high search volume. But that's kind of what everyone's looking for. So medium is great.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast, where our mission is to share business ideas, practices, and strategies while we enjoy our cup of coffee. Today's guest is Kaitlyn Studdy. She's with South Street Marketing out of Orlando, Florida. And we're going to have a fun conversation with her. She is absolutely fantastic and a wealth of knowledge. Get ready, get strapped in, because there's lots of information getting ready to come your way, as well as some information about oysters, which is really, really impactful. Before we get into the conversation, though, I do want to remind you to subscribe. You're listening to this on a podcast platform. Just go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It takes no time whatsoever, and it's free. While you're there, if you also give us a ranking, that'll be awesome. We'll appreciate that as well. If you would like to see the video version of this, hey, it's available for you for free. As a matter of fact, it's free on YouTube and Facebook. All you have to do is go find us and subscribe and follow us. You can do that by searching LOC-DOC in YouTube or Facebook. We'll be right there for you. Thank you for joining us today. The conversation is impactful. We're talking about SEO, we're talking about marketing, but we're really focused on hyper-local and how it's focused and applicable to service companies. So hopefully this is going to be one for you. Get ready for this conversation.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
Kaitlyn, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I'm pretty excited to have a conversation with you. We're going to be talking a little bit about, which I kind of am excited about, understanding the focus of kind of hyper-local as it relates to service companies and marketing those, kind of getting that story, that information out. So thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Now, are you a big coffee drinker?
I'm a tea drinker.
Oh, tea. So decaf tea or like real tea? Are you talking about hot tea? Or are you talking about iced tea?
No, well, a little bit of both, but in the mornings, the first thing that I do is I use my Keurig, but I don't put coffee in there. I just use it to heat my water. And then I put a tea bag in my cup, and then that's how I start my day.
Oh, there you go. They do make electric kettles that you can just heat up water.
I know, but I have it in my office with my cute little mini fridge. That's where my bubble water is. So, it's a whole thing.
It's a whole vibe. Got it. Okay. Well, so you're joining us from the Orlando, Florida area.
Correct.
All right. So I know a couple of folks down in Orlando, and I've visited Foxtail Coffee down there, which was just pretty good coffee, which actually I was in the St. Augustine area a couple of weeks ago, and they have a Foxtail Coffee up there as well. So they've
my gosh, they're blowing up. It's so amazing. I'm really happy for them. It's like a local staple here.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well, let's jump into rapid fire, 5 randomly selected questions just to get under your skin with unknown point values, and then we will give you a score at the end. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. Number 1, what foreign language would you like to learn and why?
Spanish, because I think that it would be great if we could not only in business talk to people, but I just think it's the most intelligent people know multiple languages. So I really admire that.
It's very true. We've talked about this before on the podcast. From a lot of my travels, I have met people, and it's so frustrating because I just feel like a moron at times because I can barely even speak English, and I meet these other people that have 3 or 4 languages that they speak fluently.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man. Okay.
Yeah.
Question number 2, have you ever had to scream help? And if so, why?
Yes, to get my husband to listen to me from the other room.
Yeah.
Help! What do you need?
So it's
That's
basically
how it went.
like the Kaitlyn that cried wolf.
Yeah. It wasn't anything serious. It's probably to get like something from a top shelf or to like pick up a box or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Question number 3. Okay. This is kind of getting deep. Have you ever stolen something from a store?
No, I've never done that. If I would have done that when I was younger, I grew up and my parents were so strict. I would have had to like go back, apologize to them, and probably mop the floors for a week or something.
Yeah, that would have been rough. That would have been rough. Okay, question number 4. If your life was a sitcom, which one would it be?
Oh my gosh, this is so hard. Okay, I would like to think that it's kind of like Selling Sunset, but the marketing version, but less drama, because I like fashion. We're an all-female team right now. I know obviously the Oppenheimer group, the 2 owners are guys, but all-female group, but we do really great work, and we have a lot of fun at the same time.
Okay. Last question, number 5. What is one random word that you say all the time?
Tchotchkes. My mother-in-law is from Austria, and oh my gosh, she's trying to live her best minimalist life and failing significantly. And she has tchotchkes everywhere, and it's great.
So, okay, this is interesting because we can dive into this. Where did you hear the word tchotchkes from? Where was that the first time that you've ever heard that?
I'm pretty sure. So I think my mom was offended that I forgot that she said it while I was growing up. And then because then my husband Andy's mom was saying it in reference to her mom. And then I was like, I'm pretty sure you have a ton of tchotchkes too. But then we quizzed each other on how to spell it. And that was a whole nother thing. Yeah. Do you know what it starts with?
I have no clue.
A T as in Tom.
Okay.
Tchotchkes.
So what's the origin of the word tchotchkes? Where does it come from?
I don't know. Let's just say Austria, because I never hear about Austria, and everyone should go visit there.
I see. I thought it was, I don't know where, but the first time I heard it was from my in-laws, and they had tons of tchotchkes. And they were like, tchotchkes this, tchotchkes that, tchotchkes that. And I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? What does this even mean? And then they described it, which if anybody's listening is going, what in the world are you guys talking about? They're basically like effectively everything that I have on my shelf back here. Little keepsakes, knickknack, or trinkets, right? Mm-hmm. And these are all decorative for intentionality, but the like gnomes, little whatever. Anyways,
like things in your yard. Like she has little mushrooms in her yard, like little hedgehog, like lawn ornaments, yard ornaments. There we go. I got it out.
A bunch of yard ornaments and just everything, just anything that is really serves no purpose other than to decorate cute, or something.
Or it looks cool. Yeah.
I've never seen any cute tchotchkes, so it can't be cute.
Yeah, I guess so. But I did see she does have a little hedgehog, so I think that was pretty cute. Okay.
All right. Well, congratulations. You made it through rapid fire. We'll give you a score of 843.
Okay. Perfect. I heard it was out of 844, so I consider that an A+.
Oh, you've done your research, I see. All right.
That I have.
Yeah, yes, exactly. All right, well, let's get into the conversation. Again, thank you for joining us. Kind of talking a little bit about marketing today, but one of the things that I'm pretty excited about this conversation is because it's going to be very directly impactful to a business like ours, service-based, where we're hyper-local. We serve a customer basis around our general vicinity, one of our 2 branches in Charlotte or Anderson. And so how do we communicate what we do to that local customer base, and why is it relevant? Why can we not just blast out one message to everybody? So let's, I guess, start there. And maybe the first question that I'll ask you is, why do you specialize on marketing for service-based companies?
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes back to, I got a degree in marketing, looked for a job everywhere except for Orlando, found one here. It was for a local dermatology group. And that's really where I learned how to do everything. The doctor in charge was kind of like, here you go, let's see what you can do. Helped them double in size in the 2.5 years that I was there. And then I was like, you know what? I just felt like I reached a plateau. And I was like, I think I can do this for other businesses. Started this company as a side hustle a little over 7 years ago, and started growing it. So that's really what I did boots on the ground, going out, meeting with people, but also their digital marketing too. So that's really where my passion lies as well.
So why is marketing for service-based companies different than, say, a restaurant or the latest widget or the latest clothes brand?
Yeah, well, with e-commerce, you do a lot of ads. There's so many strategies, landing pages. You have funnels, all of these types of things. And while you can do that for service-based companies, there are a lot of other factors that go into it that should not be ignored as well. One is local SEO. The second one is your Google business profile, which was called Google My Business before, which is your maps listing. And another one is online reviews. So if you look at, a clothing company, you're not really going to look at their Google My Business profile. You're going to look online to see what other people say about their products. So there are a lot of different factors that go into that, but also the SEO is different too. For e-commerce companies, you're probably not focusing on local areas, whereas a service-based company you are. So like Locksmith in Orlando or Charlotte Locksmith or, keywords like that people are searching in.
So when it comes to those types of things, because you mentioned Google My Business or Google Maps Business, whatever it is this week, you got to love Google and their name changes.
Yeah.
Do you see any correlation where people are looking at the Google business listing from Google Maps almost exclusively and rarely ever exiting that going to a website?
That's what Google's goal is. So the maps listing comes up based on proximity, but you can also do Google ads to put a map listing on there as well, a sponsored one. So it depends on proximity, but Google's ultimate goal is to have you get all of your questions answered right there before having to go to a website. I think that we're years away from that, but with the featured snippets at the top where you ask a question and then the answer pops up, and now you have these kind of enhanced featured snippets where you can click the drop down and see questions and answers that people have asked on there. I think that's great. But when it comes to looking to hire someone, you're going to look at reviews. You're probably going to look at the about page. You're going to look at the service page, and then how to contact them from there. And that's all on the website. So
from that aspect, because I want to jump back real quick to the snippets thing that you're talking about, because that's directly related to SEO, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the way that happens, as far as if I were like, hey man, I really have this information and I need to get it to a snippet. What is the best path to doing that? Or what is the algorithm or the decisions that Google is making effectively to do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that it's also called a featured snippet or position 0. So it's the top item that pops up on Google. And the way to do that is it's mostly based around questions. So make sure that you have questions in the content on your pages and on your blogs, and also make sure you're answering them really clearly. So it should also be throughout titles in your content as well. So there's something called an H1, H2, H3, H4, and those just stand for heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. So it's kind of the hierarchy of the most important thing. So your title is an H1, the H2 is a general overview of what you're talking about, and then the H3 is probably a title like midway through the piece of content. So you'll want to make sure that you include those as well, but answering questions and just making sure that it's really targeted and clear can help with you coming up for that.
Looking to make your conference stand out? Send your attendees home with more than just memories. Book our professional portrait booth today and get a fresh, clean headshot for each attendee. We handle all the heavy lifting, from setup and tear down to post-processing and final delivery. It's honestly just that easy. Contact us today to add unique value to your conference.
Years ago, and this is part of the reason that I'm asking this, and because I've not been able to replicate it. Years ago, there was a blog that we wrote on our website for a very specific set of instructions to do something, a routine task, which I'll tell you what it is. If you Google, how do I change my simplex code, our ranking comes up. It's a snippet, it's a video clip, like everything. We just own that. And I don't have any clue how we got there, but the video's gotten tons of views. The web page gets hit hundreds of times a day, and I don't know how we fell into that rhythm. But we actually have beat out the manufacturer of that with the information. So I've always wondered, how do you repeat that based off of the real kind of services that how do you intentionally go for that rather than by happenstance?
Yeah, well, it depends on the competition, but also probably the reason that you got that is because maybe no one else has done a particular blog or video about that topic because it's super niche. Mm-hmm. It's about one particular thing. So if no one's written about that particular topic, then you have more of a chance of coming up. So can you repeat the title again for that?
Yeah, how do I change the code? How do I change my simplex code?
So is simplex a type of lock?
Mm-hmm.
So what you could do is you could do articles about all different types of locks and which one you recommend, but answer that question in the content and test that to see if you could come up, but also test the competition too. So Google that, see if anyone else is ranking for that exact phrase, and then you could write content based on that. But that's probably why you're ranking for it, which is great.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty interesting, but the reason that I bring it up is directly relating back to SEO, search engine optimization, and even on the hyperlocal side, because, it's again, getting back to in this, I guess, maybe it's a guessing game. Maybe there's actual data that you can pull from, and so you can answer that question for me. But say, for instance, if I am in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I want to make sure that I don't believe that anybody's going to say, how do I change my simplex code in Charlotte, North Carolina? But if I want somebody to say, how do I get Brevo access control in Charlotte, North Carolina, that's where I want to be at the top of that list from a blog about that or something like that. So thinking in those terms, being intentional about the content that you're posting out, and how do you tie it back to that local side?
Yeah. So I guess you have to think about, going off of what you said, the intentionality. So is someone going to hire you to unlock that? Maybe, but if you're teaching them how to do it, maybe not. So when it comes to local SEO, it's finding what people are typing in on Google, but also utilizing your Google Search Console, which is also a free tool that Google puts out, and everyone should have that along with Google Analytics on their website. So looking at doing keyword research, and you can do that. There's a lot of free tools out there. I think Keywords Everywhere is a really great plugin. Also, Google Adwords, you can do keyword research on there for free. And looking at that to see what people are typing into Google, because that's kind of the back. So that keyword research is the compass that points you in the right direction. Because if you're putting content out there, if you're putting blogs and pages out there, but no one's finding it, you're just spinning your wheels. So first step is always doing keyword research and then finding what people are typing in, because you want things that people are going to hire you for. So like locksmith and then insert city, or, access control for my business building in Charlotte or wherever. So those are more things that probably a business would hire someone for. But featured snippets are also good in the general market, because that's kind of like a trust verification, like, oh, okay, this company has X amount of YouTube followers and X amount of this. And, who knows, maybe you'll franchise in the future or open another location, and people will be more interested because they know about everything you've built up online.
From that aspect, so keyword research, let's kind of do a little side detour on that, because that is, why is it relevant, or why does it matter? If I just say Locksmith Charlotte, just based off of our conversation here, if I just focus on Locksmith Charlotte, why would I need to focus on anything else?
Yeah, because how do you know that people are typing that in? I mean, it's kind of like you saying like, hey, I can read everyone's mind. I mean, if you do that, you might as well buy a lotto ticket too. Because that's like, you don't know what people are typing in. But the other thing too is you have to find the balance between what people are typing in and how competitive it is. Because if they're at the end of the day, there are 10 spots on Google, right? And you want to be in those first top spots. So if you're trying to go up against 20 competitors, 10 are going to be knocked off. But is that really the best keyword for you to be found for with such high competition, rather than looking for a keyword that might be searched a little bit less, but that has lesser competition and a greater ability for you to get up on the front page?
Okay, so when I'm doing keyword research, or if I'm a listener, I'm checking this podcast out, what is involved in keyword research? I just type in my city and a service that I offer, and it tells me what people are searching based off of that?
So that's kind of like, yes, that could be step one. So step one is just Googling and seeing what your competition is out there doing. Step number two would be to download the Keywords Everywhere tool. It's a free Chrome plugin. You can pay for it, but the free version works great. The third step, so kind of like the third thing to analyze as well, is Google AdWords. So you can just set up Google AdWords at no cost, and Google will give you a range of what people are searching for. Mm-hmm. So you'll log into Google AdWords, click down on tools, and then go to the keyword tool. And then what you'll start doing is typing in key phrases that you think people are typing in. So like locksmith, unlock my building, access control, anything else in those areas. Then you set your location, because you don't want to do it nationwide unless you're targeting nationwide. So you would set your location and where you are, and then you click run, and then Google gives you all of your keywords, but they also give you additional keywords, and it shows you the monthly amount of searches and also the competition. So what people are typing in, and it'll show you high, medium, or low. Mm-hmm. So from there, the golden goose right here that you want to get is low competition, but high search volume. But, that's kind of what everyone's looking for. So medium is great. Or even if it's a more targeted key phrase with low competition, but it has a higher rate of conversion, that would be even better. And then the fourth step from there would be using tools like Moz or SEMrush or any other like SEO tools to look at competition, because you can see what other people and other companies are trying to rank for. You can see what their primary keywords are and just kind of go from there and see what their strategy is.
Can you copy this key? That's a question we get asked about 3,422 times a year. And how can you actually be sure that the person who asked that question is supposed to get a copy of that key? Well, we think you should always know who can copy your keys to your business and your home, because it could be your neighbor, an old employee, a contractor, or even worse, your mother-in-law. At Loc-Doc Security, we believe in protected key systems, so you always know who has a copy of your key. To find out more, visit locdoc.net or stop by our Charlotte location. Loc-Doc Security, helping you protect your people and your property. The interesting thing, I think, through this conversation so far is there's so many resources out there and so many different tools out there, and you can use them yourself and you can do all this research. And from my perspective, and because I've gone down this rabbit hole before, and then 4 days later, it's like, okay, so now I have all this information, and now what am I going to do with it? Also, I've invested 4 days worth of research into finding this. So I know that's a question mark that a lot of people, one, will say, I don't even want to try that because that just sounds too complicated. That sounds too much. It actually sounds like work. So that's one thing. And I want to come back to that conversation in just a few minutes. But before we jump into that, I want to kind of pause, throw in reverse, and jump over real quick. You, at the start of the conversation, you said that you kind of started cutting your teeth on this at a specific company, and I cannot remember what industry you said it was.
Mm-hmm. Dermatology. Okay. So stepping back into this 7 years ago or 8 years ago, whenever that time frame was, you said you helped grow a dermatology business with marketing and these types of resources. Mm-hmm. How did you go through the process of saying, okay, this is where we are from a reputation standpoint, online visibility, all that, and then to start to turn it to just grow that? Like, what are some practical steps that people would want to start looking at? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I started working with them in 2012, and then I left full time for this company in March 2015. So it was about 2.5 years. But some of the things that we did were we made sure that we had a website, which back then it was like, should I get a website? Should I not? But yes, everyone needs a website. Number 2 was to start doing search engine optimization on it. And that was back when people had heard about it, but no one really knew what it was. It was kind of this ghost, flying over all these businesses like, hey, this should be on your radar, but we don't really know about it. So we ended up hiring a couple of agencies. Some of them, were great. Others of them we kind of learned, and at the end of the day, the doctor was like, hey, why don't you just learn how to do this? And I'll pay you to do that. So that's how I learned how to do everything. But the other thing that I did was go out and meet people who did refer or who could refer. So I was the marketing liaison as well. Okay. So when I started with them, they had 10 offices. When I left, they had 20, 17 in Central Florida, and then 3 out of state.
Gotcha.
But a lot of aspects that I feel like looking back, I feel like we could have done better that people can do now is number one, claim your Google My Business profile and fill it out to the fullest. So that's free. You can just Google your business and you probably have one on the right-hand side, or just type in Google My Business. Just a side note, it's now called Google Business Profile, but it's the same thing. Some people also call it Google Local. Once again, same thing, but it's that bar on the right-hand side that has your name, your address, your phone number, your Google reviews. Claim that, fill it out, update your photos once a month, ask a question on there and answer it. It's kind of like an FAQ section right on the front of your Google My Business profile. You can also post, and the post will last for 7 days. So we post once a week for our clients. And the reason that we do that is because Google likes it. So the other thing too that I feel like we could have done better then, that I am a huge preacher of now, is getting online reviews. So some industries are different. Like for attorneys, they have Avo, and, realtors have Zillow, but I just still feel like a lot of people Google, especially service-based industries. So getting online reviews is crucial. And I email people personally and ask them in meetings like, hey, if I sent you an email to leave us a review, would you mind doing that? Mm-hmm. And I explain it. I'm like, this is going to help other people like you find us online. So we've worked really hard, and we have right now 104 Google reviews. So I think there's, especially for service-based like AC companies, locksmith companies, you all have so many more clients than we do. So I feel like there's no excuse not to get at least, however many clients you have, try to get at least like 10% at the low end of those Google reviews. And people always mention too, they're like, well, I asked and no one did it. That's because everyone's busy. Like, we just got a Google review today. We ended our agreement with him, I think 3 months ago, and he just left us a review today. So don't get discouraged, but you have to kind of put that personal element on it, which is why I ask them in person, and then I follow up with an email, and then I'll probably send another email after some time. But those are 2 things I think we could have done better. But also when it comes to search engine optimization, just to kind of go back to next steps after keyword research, one thing that we did when I was at the dermatology group is we had all of our providers, or at least the newer providers, write 1 piece of content per month. And then I would go in there and optimize it. So, and what that means is I would add a keyword or a key phrase that was the focus point of that blog, and I would post it for them. So that's something that's kind of like step 2 after that whole keyword research conversation that we just had earlier. And I mentioned to you before we started recording that we post 2 blogs a week, but it's not all me. I have a really amazing team. So just know that when you're starting out, set realistic expectations. Like when I was starting out, there's no way I could post 2 blogs per week. It was just unattainable. So in whatever you do with marketing, it needs to be consistent. So if you're like, listen, I'm going to put 2 blogs per month, do 2 blogs per month, but don't try to match these bigger companies that have all of these amazing resources, because you're not there yet, and that's okay.
Yeah. The consistency thing is something that you can underline a lot, that people struggle with, because you go, especially in small business, where you go through flashes of, okay, we're going to do this, and we throw a lot of, internal effort towards it, and then life happens, business happens, things get busy. And we learned that with this podcast. So we're coming up on, what are we at? 200, nearly 200 episodes. So, for 4 years, we've been consistently putting out an episode week after week after week. And I've seen a lot of podcasts start up, and they'll throw out a dozen podcasts, and then they kind of die off, and then they come back, and there's just an inconsistency. So you can't really follow it. From that side, like having consistency in your written content, having consistency in your email blast, or any communication that you're sending out is big, because I think from a human nature, people start to rely on that. And again, even from your, I would imagine part of the Google analytics or the Google algorithm is saying consistent content is significantly better than just a blast of information, and then it getting stagnant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, think about if you research someone and just look at their Facebook page and they haven't posted since 2017, you're kind of like, are they still in business? Are they still around? And, some people might think like, oh, they got busy and they don't have time, but others might think, are they still in business? And that kind of, it just has questions like churn. So even if you're like, I'm not getting anything from Facebook, just post once a month and another thing that people struggle with is, well, what do I post? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it's hard for people to, toot their own horn or talk about really great things that they did. But testimonials is a great one. So taking some testimonials from either Google, Zillow, wherever anyone is, you can repurpose those. Mm-hmm. You can talk about any new accomplishments or certifications that your team has gotten. You can talk about, personal things too, like do, an office tour. That would be really cool on video, like on Instagram as a reel. So, and also you can repurpose the content that you're putting out there. So if you're posting one blog a month, take those titles in your blog and make those into bullet points for social media and just repurpose that content. But also you can take that again and repurpose it towards an email blast. So make this one, if you're dedicating time to write one blog per month, which is a great start, repurpose it on all of these different levels.
I like it. So that I think that's a really great piece of advice. Write the blog first, because that's going to be time intensive, and you've got to understand all the components, get all the content in there, and then from that bring it down and say, okay, so here's one small point off of that. So that's we're just going to create a post around this, put a picture that's going to be associated with it, and so we're always kind of pointing back to that same messaging time and time again, and really without having to come up with new fresh content every single time.
Yeah. I mean, you could actually break down, if you have like maybe 4 points in your blog, you could make that into one social post. And then each of those points could also be a social post. So that's 5 posts that you have right there. And I mean, if you're posting one time a week, that's fine to maintain.
Yeah. So with that, I want to go back because we diverted off this for a little bit and I want to come back to it. Okay. We also, probably in a similar time frame, 2013, 2014, somewhere in there, hired a company to help us get some SEO optimization. And they were writing a blog article and a page for us or whatever every month. And one of the reasons we pulled away from it was because the content was very SEO driven, but it was very far. It was a far reach from who we actually were as an organization. And I'm trying to think how to describe that a little better, but the words that were there were optimized for search engines. But when you actually read through it, it didn't actually give a good representation of our company or what we actually did. So, but one of the things that I learned from that was writing an article or writing a blog that was actually relevant to the audience. And so trying to bring the representation of the company as well as the audience in there and kind of pairing it together. Going back to all of that takes time. All of that is not something that people are just let me snap a picture and throw it up on Instagram. There's a lot more intentionality around, especially when you start talking about writing a blog, being very intentional with that content. How do you help people with that process? Because effectively, you've got to kind of become a subject matter expert for the businesses that you're writing for, that your team is writing for. How do you help kind of bridge that gap together and bring real relevant quality content that is going to kind of hit the message for the ideal audience?
Yeah, it's kind of a running joke because we have a roofer that we've been working with for so long. And whenever we have a question about roofing, we just go to the person that writes their blogs and they're like, I never thought I would know this much about roofing, but you literally have to know about it. So one thing that we do is we have an intensive kickoff meeting with the client. We talk to them about the tone, how they want to be perceived online. We ask them if there are any other pieces of content or blogs that anyone else writes that we could mirror the voice and tone, because I think it seems like that was one of the things that may have been missing, and just maybe it was too formal and you guys are a more fun company, or maybe it was the opposite. But you really have to think about, okay, how do I want to be portrayed online? So as an example, we write for attorneys all the time, and attorneys don't use contractions. So there's no apostrophe S. It's not we're, it's we are. It's very formal. But we also write for like a dog boarding company. We don't have to be as formal when writing about them. So it depends on who your audience is and what the company is all about. And as another example, we have a fire and life safety company, and I mean, they walk the line. Like it's like puns, and it's kind of like sassy in there. And there's like a little bit of like, oh, okay. But that's their personality. They are just like a really fun, like really open company, and they like things like that. So I think it goes down to think about your personality, think about the tone. If you can read some blogs, not even in your industry, like I'll give you an example. I follow Dave Ramsey, and he does a lot of like financial things. His blogs are great. They're super relatable. It goes along with the brand. They're really like a fun company, and they've grown so much. But I even send the blogs, I'm on their newsletter, but I send the blogs to my team, and I'm like, hey, this is a great example. It's not even about the content. It's about how it's written. This is a great example of the tone and how they give examples throughout, and it's completely relatable to people. But, that's the other thing too is, some companies are writing for the industry expert. And most of the time, the people that are reading your content are not like, I had to ask you to repeat the title because I didn't know what you're talking about. Sure. If you would have, gone into detail, let's say that was a blog about like, oh, this one does this, and, X times T equals blah, blah, blah. And I'm over here like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. I don't know. Like, it's like over my head. So a lot of times it's also great in that sense to have someone who's kind of reviewing it, even if it's a new team member on your team, if you don't want to hire an agency, or just having someone else look over it, because some of the content with some of the industry experts is just like way too intense, and no one's going to read through it because they can't understand it.
That's a very valid point. I think, again, to underline that and point back to the validity of working with or having somebody on your team that can do that, because from a industry expert side of things, you can get way too technical, way too in the weeds, and then it's where it makes absolute sense to you. And I was having a conversation with somebody earlier. They were using a lot of acronyms and terminology that was unfamiliar to me. I'm the guy that asked, like, hey, what does that mean? Like, what are you talking about? But very oftentimes people don't want to ask because they don't want to feel, like they don't know what's going on. And so they just go about life without kind of understanding that, or waiting till later to research it. So with that said, it is great to have somebody that has the technical knowledge or industry knowledge to give the points, but having somebody that is not an industry expert to come in and kind of break it down into a translatable conversation, I think is really is hugely valuable, because you have to understand. I mean, let me say that for the majority of the people that we're talking about, I would say the people that are reading these articles or these blogs don't need to be industry experts, and they don't want to be industry experts.
No.
And so they need something that's easily digestible, makes sense, and is, as you said, examples and applicable. And that's where somebody like Dave Ramsey and all these other folks have done a really good job, because it's like, okay, here are the 4 points that you're trying to communicate. Also, why does it matter to me? Or
exactly.
And so kind of bringing those things into place, but getting partnering up with somebody that can help with that is huge, because you can bring the industry knowledge and industry expertise, but then also make it appealing. So, because we've said this a lot about our podcast, because a lot of people say, why do you have a podcast that has nothing to do with locks and security? And I say, because nobody wants to sit around and hear about locks and security. So how do we get that information relatable to our audience?
Yeah, I think it's just about breaking it up into bite-sized pieces. But one of the things that we So we look at our clients as partners. So both of us are on the same team or working towards the same goal. So we have some really niche clients that we work with, and everything. It has to do with insurance and compliance and all of that. And so what they do is they review the blogs before they go live, just to make sure that everything's consistent and everything is in line with what they say too. So that's also another option. But internally, it's always good just to have a second set of eyes.
Very cool. Well, from a time perspective, I want to be mindful of that. You've given so much information. I mean, I'm just looking at my list here. Some actions: claim your Google My Business profile, update photos once a month on that, ask questions and answer them, post once a week on your Google. This is all just the Google My Business, even if you don't touch anything else. Get some online reviews, optimize your written content, have consistency with all of it. That is really sound advice. And then also, obviously, you have the ability to help people do that and manage that on their behalf. So if they want to get in contact with you, how do they do that?
Yep. You can find us online at southstreetmarketing.com. You can call us, shoot us an email at hello@southstreetmarketing.com. And if you're not ready for a full marketing agency, we also offer coaching. So consider that. We're working with putting a proposal out with a solar company, and we're doing all of the keyword research and putting together the strategy, and their team is going to execute it. So we're kind of like that outsourced creative marketing department, but they're doing the work, which is pretty neat.
Very cool. You know, I have an idea for you. You could write just tons of blog posts on your website around the world is your oyster. So if anybody Googles what it means, you come up as the snippet and you're the expert on it.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Just consider it. Just consider it.
I am all about that positivity, you know. I could put my positive vibes in the Google verse.
Yeah. You never know when you might get Oyster, Rockefeller, or a Pearl. So we'll see.
You never know.
Kaitlyn, thanks again for the chat today. Great information, great advice, great action items. We've got a lot of work to get on ourselves. Thank you for joining us today. If this is your first time listening or first time watching, make sure you subscribe, because we've got a new episode coming out next Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., and we don't want you to miss it. Thanks for joining us for the Coffee Break Podcast, and we'll see you next time.